Thanks so much for tuning in to part 2 of our discussion with Drew Hinton, President and CEO of Aero Safety. On this episode, we're going to dive into how we've seen safety training change as a result of the pandemic. We're going to dive into the future of safety training and also Drew's advice for safety professionals moving forward. Let's get started.
That makes me think, with everything going on in 2022 already, everything that we're dealing with even last year, just some of the trends, how do you really see safety evolving this next year, or safety training? Do you have, what's your philosophy around it all? Do you see the same training topics maybe as you did last year, or have you been training on other things? Has there been any specific company requests for different topics? How have you really seen safety trending?
Yeah, I think we're starting to slowly see more and more people bring in, you and I both, outside consultants and outside training services, because, compared to, early 2020 when COVID first hit, it was just to shut everything down. Nobody comes into the facility. We don't really know what to do. But now that I'm using this term loosely, somewhat got a grasp of COVID, they've already got, for the most part, measures in place so they can start bringing those things in and doing those classes that maybe they've been putting off for a year. OSHA came out and said, 2020 that they're going to use discretion, and because of COVID, that if you have to skip, extend the, annual training to, 16 months, 14 months, a little bit longer, that they'll use their discretion because they understand there is COVID. But we're starting to see more and more people asking for those hands-on things where they're getting in more close proximity. I've had one quoted out this past week that we haven't done in a while, but we enjoy doing is a radiation safety officer course. It's usually for me, it's one of the more fun classes. That was kind of one of my specialties within hazmat is radiation and nuclear technology. So it's definitely a fun one, but haven't done that one since pre-COVID. So it's good to be back, getting back and being back in these facilities. And they're, like I said, they're bringing companies like you and I into their facilities, and getting people back into the classroom is the big thing.
I couldn't agree more with you. That's funny you say that. I feel like I like the way you said that. I feel like a lot of companies, maybe they were just, for whatever reason, pausing classes. Yes, being afraid, or just maybe not feeling comfortable grouping everyone together. Maybe business was just slower and now they're starting to rehire. But for whatever reason it is, I do feel like companies are starting to get their, and also maybe the budgets are fresh in the beginning of the year now, and so they have the budget for training. But companies that haven't done training in a few years, it seems like, are finally starting to say, okay, let's get back to the basics.
Yep, and we've done several customers and clients to where they have a lot of people that need to be trained, and they'll end up breaking it into several small sessions so that we can accommodate everybody, and they still can do their physical distancing and social distancing, and we can sanitize all the equipment in between classes. And so they're still expressing a need, but we're still meeting the end result that we're getting people trained, which is the main.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then what about this is something that I was going to ask you actually a few weeks ago. We've been seeing some requests now more than ever with more of these behavior-based safety classes. And so even though they're not these OSHA required, more of the soft skills, more of the leadership type of trainings, have you seen that pick up at all? Or, what are your thoughts about those types of trainings and what that'll look like this year?
Right. Yeah, I've slowly started to see that pick up. I would like to see it pick up more, because, like you said, with the soft skills, we just did a class with Draeger and Marathon a couple weeks ago, and it was focused on critical thinking. It was a confined space atmosphere class, 2-day class, but it was focused on why things occur. So, when you're talking about the behavior-based safety, we're taking it a step further and understanding why we're doing those unsafe behaviors and unsafe acts. And so we have seen a few people start to ask about that, and I would like to see more, because it's, especially, it's nothing against newer safety professionals, but people that aren't experienced, they tend to naturally just deviate towards, this is black and white when it's not always black and white. We have to understand, why they're doing that. I'll tell people I'm not a big believer in common sense, because unless you've been there, done that, it's not common to you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are working these last couple weeks, actually, time's been flying by. These last couple months, we've been really working with the OSHA Training Institution here in Colorado. I have a really good relationship with them. They're a phenomenal institution. The OSHA Training Institution here is awesome. And so they have been open to more of those soft skills and asking, hey, what is the workforce? Like, what is Weld County, Larimer County? What are you guys really seeing, like boots on the ground? And I said, I've been really seeing the idea of like a stress management class be something that I just feel like our industry needs, our industry as far as just like workforce. I mean, it's not specific to construction or oil and gas, manufacturing, trucking. I feel like stress management is just something that is needed. And it really goes into what you were just saying, like that critical thinking piece, that there's a reason behind someone's decision, right? And I agree with you that common sense is not to be expected from somebody that, maybe they just graduated high school, or maybe they were in a completely different industry entering into construction. So, I mean, just safety pro to safety pro. What do you think about that? A stress management class? You think that the industry has an appetite for that?
If they don't, they should. I'm 100% for it, because especially right now, even 2 years post COVID starting, I mean, we're still, labor shortages. We're being asked to do more with less, right? And so, especially in the industry you talked about, construction, oil and gas, we're still doing more with less people there, and so it adds the stress on that. But even considering outside of the workplace factors, right, that come into play, and so any HR professional is going to have a lot of companies will have that employee assistance program that you can call, but that's about the extent of most companies do, right? So they say, here's a confidential line, go call it. Don't let us know what happened, because it's confidential. But that's the extent of it. They don't really take it into consideration. And I know they came out with the ISO standard. I forget what number it is, because there's a million different numbers out there. But referring to it's covering mental health. And so I do think that is good. I would love to see that. I would love to see that more.
They were talking about making it almost a train the trainer class, something that like our instructors could go through. Anybody could fly in and take that class. I mean, so we're starting to write out the objectives and what it would cover. And I love how you worded that, just that our industry, the construction, oil and gas, they are being asked to do more with less. I mean, that is absolutely true for so many industries right now. And the labor shortage, I mean, it's just really a stressful time, and it's skills and techniques that you could take outside of the workplace. But, and going off of what you said with the ISO standard there, is that it is more of a mental health conversation. They were just asking, does the industry have an appetite for the word mental health yet? And I was like, I don't know. Let's call it stress management, and no one will know the difference. And they were like, because it really is a mental health class. Geez, like everyone's going through it. But okay, well, that's interesting. I'm just curious if that was something that many of your clients have been asking for. But where the company's based out of, I know you travel a ton, but what industries do you mainly serve? I guess I'm so used to saying oil and gas and construction, but what companies do you primarily work with?
We do a lot of manufacturing and chemical, but we're really in just about any industry. We've got customers up in New Hampshire that are, aviation maintenance facilities, and we got several down in the Texas Permian Basin area that, oil and gas, but they're more or less parts of the oil and gas. So they're making large gate valves for the oil and gas industry. I mean, 50-foot tall gate valves. But our primary ones, we focus on any kind of manufacturing, then specifically chemical manufacturing is a big one.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. Oh my gosh, that's cool. Is there anything that your company is up to right now? Any new courses that you guys are looking at developing, or any new partnerships, anything exciting like that for the year?
Well, we're looking at doing more of the train-the-trainer courses on several topics, but we're also looking at we're partnering with HSI, the Health and Safety Institute, for all of our CPR first aid, and we're looking at becoming teaching the instructor development courses so that we can train other first aid CPR instructors.
Perfect.
Like I said, I think that's one of the most fruitful classes you can have because it does apply outside the workplace, and so the more people I can get teaching that, whether it's for me or not, I don't care who they are, but I like to see somebody responding, because most of the times that, just going back to my fire and EMS career, if there was somebody that we got called out to for a cardiac arrest, most of the time that somebody walked out of the hospital or survived was when somebody was there doing CPR before we got there. It was more or less music to our ears to get dispatched and say, respond to this address, cardiac arrest, CPR is already in progress. We're like, hey, we got a good chance here, right?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm sure you have so many stories. I mean, this is just out of curiosity, a question like that is, what is the success rate with CPR? And I mean, not statistically, but I mean, from your actual experience working with the fire department, and, let's say that there's like a choking. I mean, was that something? And if CPR was being administered, was that still less than 5% chance that the victim would survive? Or
no, it was actually, and there's a lot of variables in there, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably around 25 to 30%
oh wow,
probability. And actually, back in, I think it was 2013, 14, somewhere around there, Louisville Metro EMS started to demo the Lucas device. I don't know if you've seen those, but they're the CPR devices to where, it looks like a plunger, but it takes the responder's hand off and it does consistent CPR, consistent compressions. And they demoed that for about a year because, they're $5,000-$10,000 a piece. But we demoed those for a year on the Louisville Metro ambulances, and their survivability rates doubled just because it was consistent compressions, and it freed up a responder to do something else if they had to push IVs or whatever that may be. But that's what you're starting to see with American Heart Association, Red Cross, is they're focusing on that high quality CPR, not just doing compressions, but doing it consistent rate, consistent depth. And so anywhere with or without the Lucas device, it's going to, like I said, without it was going to it was around 25-30%, but like I said, doubled that 1 year. And after that, they put every ambulance purchase one of those because of that.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. And we're American Red Cross instructors, and that just seems to be, you're right. That seems to be a class where we continuously get the same feedback of, yes, thank you. My employer sent me through this class and that was great, but these are life skills that I'm able to take on to my family. So absolutely. That's any other trends with that class as far as, being able to add your own spin and twist? Like, what are some hands-on things that you guys always do, like for your first aid training classes? Is there anything fun that you're able to do?
Yeah, we've actually got a full size. It's actually a nursing mannequin, so it's about as, I'll just say, anatomically correct as you can be.
Does it have a name? Does it have a name, and does everyone get crazy with it?
Dwight the dummy.
That's awesome. We have the just like the half size, quarter size mannequins for our classes, and every week they're rearranged. You go to our training room and people place them in odd areas and scare the crap out of people. But anyways, okay, so you have a dummy. It has a name. Okay.
Yeah, so depending on the customer, sometimes they'll want hey, let's do a CPR first aid half day session, and then sometimes they'll want a full, let's do an 8 hour and really dive into it. And so that's where the full size comes into play. Like you said, we'll use the half size, the just upper torso mannequins like we would for CPR. Yeah. But with the one that we have, it's got injection sites, and we could dress it up, put it.
Oh.
I've used it for high angle rescue classes. Put it in a mannequin, hang it up in the air, and have them rescue that person. But and we've got moulage kits that we can put into play and let them really treat the person, because we'll let them practice on each other, and whether it's bleeding control or if it's doing a tourniquet, whatever that may be, and then we'll run the full scenario. And it's just small things that the people tend to forget in the training aspect of it, and then they get to the real world incident and they're like, what's going on? And what I mean by that is something as simple as, like with CPR, cutting the clothes off, taking the bras off. Like I saw one of the CPR, MCR Medical, they come out with, like, or maybe it's Preston, one of the medical training facilities came out with a bra, accessory to put on your training mannequins, because people completely forget about that.
Oh, wow. That's so,
and they, I'll do a scenario and I'll put them in a Tyvek suit in a harness, they're working up somewhere, and then they just completely freak out. Like, what are we supposed to do? I'm like, just take it all off. And they get so focused on what they learn in class, and then they forget about those small minor details that end up adding up, and they freeze up, for lots of different reasons.
absolutely.
And so it's just a matter of repetition, like I said, making it as realistic as possible, so that, if we're training it like in real life in the classroom, then they're going to be at least expecting it in the real world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's an awesome philosophy. Yeah, the more realistic, the more memorable, and the more chance that somebody will be able to repeat what they learned in class. I feel like we share that same philosophy that, it's just about being as hands-on and technical in a classroom as physically possible, to really bring the training to life and make sure that students are leaving with some tools that will hopefully save their life, somebody else's. That's fantastic. So, okay. Holy smokes. Well, if you are not, we're going to drop all of your links to your social media, into your company. I want people to see what your company does, because it's absolutely incredible. I love seeing you could see the quality of training through your social. I think that what you do is fantastic. And any other do you have any last pieces of advice for safety professionals that are maybe trying to level up their safety training for this year? They're trying to do something different, or they're just trying to be more effective. Do you have any advice for safety professionals this year?
So the first thing is something I learned, and it was instilled with me in the fire department, was, and you'll see it at the bottom of a lot of my social media posts, is train like your life depends on it, because it does. And so, we kind of instill that, making people, more or less go to a class that's, here's another HAZWOP or 8-hour class. This is going to be boring, but let's make it fun. We can make that fun. But the biggest thing, I think, for, experienced or new safety pros, is involving your workers in the training program. Hey, what do you all want to see? What do you want to get trained on? What in your eyes are the biggest hazards that you're facing? Because most of the safety pros are, honestly, we're sitting in offices. We're not doing the work that they're doing. They're more knowledgeable of those hazards than we are, as far as what they're facing. But we can incorporate them, bring them in, and use that when we're developing our training program, so that we can cater it and make it. That's how you make it more realistic. Is you tell me what you're dealing with, and we'll make it happen, right?
Oh my gosh, I'll tell you, I have never had more of an effective meeting than when I've used that line that you just said. What are the hazards that you feel like are most important? What are the hazards that you feel like we should cover within the next 3 months of safety meetings, or next month's safety meeting? What do you think that we should cover? And holy smokes, if you could just, as simple as engaging your employees that way, the feedback that you'll receive and the pressure that'll be taken off your back from, developing a 2022 training plan. Ask the team and just engage them. I couldn't agree with you more. So, this time went by really, really fast. I think I went over, but I really appreciate your time today, Drew. Thank you so much. I hope that we can make this a part 2. I'm sure we'll be talking again in a few months. So,
we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, everyone, again, to learn more about Drew and his company, we'll link his business, his contact information in the description. And thank you so much for listening to us. And we'll talk with you soon. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.